The Speedy World. I am Syed Muhammad Ali and you are watching Fault Lines. China's Foreign Minister, His Excellency Qin Gang, is here in Islamabad. He has arrived on his first visit to Pakistan on the special invitation of Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. His Excellency Qin Gang is here to co-chair the fourth round of Pakistan-China strategic dialogue. And also there are talks between Pakistan, Afghanistan and China with regards to cooperation in the region. Both the countries, Pakistan and China, are interested to bring Afghanistan into the mainstream and to do whatever diplomatic efforts can be done about it. To talk about this subject, we have today invited Ambassador retired Masood Khalid, who is one of the best experts to speak about this subject, has served for a very long time as Pakistan's diplomat in China. Ambassador Sahab, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about the significance of this visit of China's foreign minister. I understand this is his first visit to Pakistan.
That's right. This is his first visit to Pakistan, and as you know, he had gone to India to attend the SCO Council of Foreign Ministers meeting. And thereafter, he is now in Islamabad. And as you rightly pointed out, he is having a trilateral between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China. This is, I believe, the fifth round of the trilateral. And then in the morning, he held the fourth round of strategic level talks between Pakistan and China. So the first part, both the rounds are important in the context of Pakistan-China relations. The first round was presumably devoted to bilateral relations and a review of regional and international developments, which impact both China and Pakistan. So the entire range, because this strategic dialogue started when I was there, and the entire gamut of bilateral relations is reviewed, including cooperation, on CPAC. And I'm sure the afternoon session, which is devoted to Afghanistan, because we have mutual concern over the situation in Afghanistan, although ostensibly stable, the situation, is still, there are undercurrents of instability in the sense that there is a mutation of terrorist outfits who are posing a threat to Pakistan, who are posing a threat to other neighboring countries. And then the Taliban government has also not been able to really fully come up to the expectations of the international community in terms of, an inclusive political dispensation and the women's rights, girls' education, So all these are areas of concern, and it's a good opportunity for Pakistan and China to sit together with the Afghan acting foreign minister and ascertain their thinking on these issues, because for reconstruction and rehabilitation of a war-ravaged economy, which is Afghanistan, you need foreign investments, you need foreign technical expertise, you need to open up Afghanistan a little bit so that NGOs and international humanitarian organizations, United Nations can work, and the foreign countries can also chip in, their investment and all that. So China is also interested because China has an interest in the economic development of Afghanistan, and China wants to exploit its natural resources of minerals and metals and oil and gas, and through a collaborative effort, which is a win-win proposition for both Afghanistan and China. But unfortunately, things have not taken off. And as you also know, that CPAC's connectivity to the wider region and its extension to Afghanistan has also been decided in principle, as agreed in principle between Pakistan and China. But that will only be possible when there is peace and stability and security in Afghanistan, and the foreign companies, Chinese government and Pakistan side feel satisfied and comfortable to come forward and assist Afghanistan. So that is Afghanistan.
Ambassador Masood Saab, but let me ask you with regards to Afghanistan, there are quite big concerns of China. And with the previous leadership of Chinese Foreign Office, they tried to take some commitments with regards to ensuring that there is no spillover of terrorism from the Afghan soil in China, which Taliban leadership unfortunately could not ascertain. So do you think there is going to be a change in Afghanistan's approach with regards to these dialogue as the alienation or the isolation of Afghanistan is rising with each passing day?
That is what we all hope for, because that makes sense. Even from the point of view of Afghanistan, it is on the verge of, financial sort of difficulties, financial problems, and its assets have been frozen by the United States. It is still facing sanctions, so you cannot operate in an environment which is, rife with restrictions and sanctions and asset freeze and travel bans. I mean, Security Council lifted this ban on the travel of Mr. Muttaqi to Pakistan. So you can well imagine that they are operating within the confines of Afghanistan. So no link as such. I mean, no robust link, I would say, with the outside world. So it is, I think, in the interest of Afghan people, Afghanistan itself, to open up a little bit, to allow girls' education, to allow foreign NGOs to work there, allow UN humanitarian organizations, United Nations, to work in there, and you will see that will have a very positive impact, positive effect. The other countries will come in, and we want to, advance the CPAC by undertaking some joint projects, with Afghanistan. That has been agreed to in principle. So spillover of terrorism, that is a universal concern, especially of the neighboring countries, especially of Pakistan, because Pakistan is right now facing this new resurgence of terrorist activities which are emanating from Afghanistan. And I think there is a perception that although there is a stability in Afghanistan, yet the current government in Afghanistan is not in full grip of the situation, in the sense
Masood Saab, this brings to my, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but this brings to a very important point in this conversation. And that is that if Taliban's writ is going to erode further, it will become more difficult for the neighboring countries, particularly for China, for Russia, and for Pakistan, because not only the diplomatic missions of Russia and Pakistan have been targeted, but also a hotel filled with Chinese workers and staff has been targeted in the heart of Kabul, which is an evidence that Taliban are quite struggling with their writ inside Kabul.
Yeah, you see the rise in activities of TTP and Islamic Khorasan, ISIS. They are indulging in terror. And Pakistan is right now the main victim of this terrorism. Similarly, China also has its concerns over the resurgence of ETIM. So,
Ambassador Saab, SCO is a very important forum where Pakistan's foreign minister has also participated, and Chinese foreign minister was also here primarily to participate in this very important forum. So tell us about the significance. You have had a very long stay as a diplomat. So tell us, how significant is this forum, because this also provided Pakistan's foreign minister an opportunity to being in India, perhaps maybe after 12 years. This was first visit. So how significant of a forum SCO is?
No, Shanghai Cooperation Organization is important for Pakistan. Pakistan became a member, full-fledged member in 2017. Before that, we were observer. And since then, Pakistan has proactively participated in all the activities and programs of SCO. So I think it was a right decision by the foreign minister to go there and represent Pakistan, because this organization focuses primarily on security, terrorism, and extremism, and now its platter is being expanded to include connectivity and economic cooperation. So all these plans are in works. And moreover, two important countries, China, which is time-tested friend, neighbor, is a member, and Russia, with whom we are improving our relations, they are there. India is there. India is a big country, and then rest of Central Asian republics. And the very fact that this organization is becoming important in the context of emerging regional, security architecture, that more countries are interested. Iran is about to become a member. Belarus is there, and then other countries have become dialogue partners. So there has been some criticism of foreign ministers' participation in the conference, but I want to tell that our abstention would have sent a very negative signal. We did not go there for the sake of India. We went there because Pakistan wanted representation in this important organization. With rest of the countries, we have excellent relations with all Central Asian republics, Iran, Russia, and China, with the exception of India. So, and then if Pakistan was not there, countries which are aspiring to join this organization, I think this is an important point, like Iran, Kuwait, Maldives, with whom we have good relations, they would have also, not uh, received Pakistan's abstaining from this meeting, well. So I think overall it was a very good decision to go there, and then foreign minister spoke there, and
But Khan Sahab,
that is
there is an important point. I mean, while Pakistan's and China's foreign ministers were sitting, we saw Indian foreign minister mocking not only Pakistan but also CPAC, making fun of China's approach, in joining hands with Pakistan in such a massive economic project in which all other countries want to be a part of, all other countries that are member of it. And besides, please also enlighten us on the fact that despite the ground conflicts that China have with India, and despite overwhelming amount of evidence of India's involvement in all the terrorist activities in Pakistan that is hampering China's interest as well, why China and India have not distanced themselves economically? The trade volume is rising even further. We don't see a disconnect between the two sides.
no. I think that what the Indian foreign minister did in terms of indicting Pakistan was not the right thing to do as a host country, uh, because our foreign minister made a good statement. He did refer to the violation of international law and Security Council resolutions in the context of unilateral action of India of August 2019, but he did not mention a word because the SCO parameters, SCO charter, SCO norms do not allow countries to raise bilateral issues. Yet he forcefully expounded Pakistan's point of view. Now, Mr. Jaishankar, on the other hand, in his press conference, raised the usual mantra of terrorism. Now, even, I mean, it has no credibility. The reason is that even Indian own, uh, army army commanders and journals who are involved in operational side of the things with Pakistan, they have also said it publicly that there has not been any infiltration from Pakistan. They are on record. I mean, these statements are very much there. So this is a kind of, I would say, a cover which India stay because there's nothing else to do. Now, you mentioned CPAC. India has no rationale, no legitimacy to question CPAC on the basis of violation of India's sovereignty. It is between Pakistan and China, and this is an economic project. all the rest of SCO member states, even Sri Lanka, which is not a member of SCO, countries like Sri Lanka and others, Saudi Arabia, they have shown their interest in CPAC because Pakistan is geographically in such a situation, in such a position so as to provide access to our neighbors in Central Asia, which are landlocked, even to Russia, to our ports. So the countries have that vision for connectivity and for linkages. So India is not, in my view, is not on right side of history. If imagine if India were part of this BRI project, and Indian economy and Chinese economy, and together in the neighborhood, if we had peace and stability in our region,
Point taken.
and
Point taken, Ambassador Masood
if
Khalid Saab. Thank you very much for your valuable time and thank you very much for contributing in our show. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Ambassador retired Masood Khalid Saab. And in the end, he said that India is not on the right side of the history, particularly with regards to its relationship with China. Otherwise, China and India together could have achieved far more wonders. During this SCO summit, there was a press briefing made by Jaishankar, India's foreign minister. I would want to play that small clip before we take our guest on this part of our program.
As a foreign minister of an SCO member state, Mr. Bhutto Zardari was treated accordingly. As a promoter, justifier, and I'm sorry to say spokesperson of a terrorism industry, which is the mainstay of Pakistan, his positions were called out and they were countered, including at the SCO meeting itself. So let me come to the specifics. On the China-Pakistan economic corridor, this so-called corridor, I think it was made very clear, not once but twice in the SCO meeting, that connectivity is good for progress, but connectivity cannot violate the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. So this has been our long-standing position. Nobody should have any doubt about it. And I assure you, those who are in the room today had no doubt about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, believe me or not, this is the serving foreign minister of the largest democracy in the world. And you just can realize what kind of a sick and poisonous mentality is serving as a roadblock in attainment of a perpetual peace that can give its dividends to the people of subcontinent. Before taking my guest in this part of my show, I would want to remind Mr. Jaishankar that the Prime Minister, under which his modern India is quote-unquote thriving, was not allowed to enter in the United States for straight 10 years for massive crimes against humanity. And just to recall the incidents of February 2002, whereas Chief Minister, he had caused murder in cold blood of over 1,000 people. All 1,000 of them were Muslims, sponsored by him as Chief Minister of his province. And this is not something that is not known to the international media. The international media has extensively covered this story till Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister. I am joined by Syed Muhammad Ali, who is an expert of the subject, and I requested him to be a part of my show. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sabahat.
Ali, you just heard a statement, a very sad statement by India's foreign minister. What do you believe? Is it the way you talk to the people who are invited because you being president of an organization that just rotates its presidentship, and they have all come to be a part of that organization, not to be your guest exclusively?
It's a very significant expression and exposure of the reality of the Indian leadership and their true sentiments towards Pakistan in general. and Muslim faith in particular. And I think it deserves due consideration by the international community. But before I explain the context, I think there are two reasons why he said what he said. One is the international context, and one is the domestic context. The domestic context is obviously political, and you see a trend in the BJP leadership to try to malign its minorities in general and Muslims in particular, and Pakistan especially, in order to convert some sympathy and votes uh, in the upcoming elections. So it's very sad, irresponsible, dangerous, and destabilizing behavior from Indian political leadership. And I would like to express sympathy with the Indian military officers as well, because the Indian political leadership does not stop even from false flag operations and losing the lives of their own soldiers and security personnel in order to achieve some short-term domestic political gains rather than serving their nation and security interests. Number one. The second is the international context, which is very significant. When you see Mr. J. Shankar express his frustration because uh, basically it is an evidence of the failure that the Indian diplomatic and political leadership realizes that it has faced despite its military occupation and political accommodation of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir into the dominion of India, has not been diplomatically and internationally legitimized and accepted. And this particular forum, SCO, which is one of the most important regional forums which is emerging, uh, provided an opportunity for Pakistani foreign minister to expose the Indian reality before some very important countries like Russia, like China, and so many others as well. So, and it was acknowledged. That is the second aspect. And you should also see it in the context that their frustration in the context of the upcoming G20 conference that they hope to arrange in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which obviously has a diplomatic agenda to legitimize their occupation and normalize their brutalities, which obviously is not going to succeed. So this is expression and evidence of the Indian frustration that its brutality, operation, and occupation is not being normalized and accepted and legitimized by the international community despite its best efforts. And Pakistan continues to expose the reality of the Indian behavior and thinking at all international forums. And I think it's a successful policy which should continue.
Ali, but let me read what he has just said from his statement that I played. He said Kashmir was, is, and will always be a part of India. Now, what message he's trying to give? Because on one side, he's saying that Pakistan should not have had CPAC passing through Gilgit Baltistan, and on the other side, he says what is against all the norms. So what do you think he's trying to accomplish from such sweeping statements?
I think, as you lastly pointed out, let me reiterate that it was particularly against all diplomatic norms that as a host of the SCO Foreign Ministers Council, it violated the diplomatic courtesy and norms which is expected from all sovereign states, notwithstanding their political differences. And that actually exposes their true national character. The second is that it is trying to obviously not just legitimize its occupation and operation, but very importantly, trying to mislead the international community, which was present at the SCO conference, into believing that the UN recognized freedom struggle of the Kashmiri people is allegedly a terrorist outfit and movement, whereas Pakistan's presence was vindicated and justified, that it was there and it was wise and prudent to participate, not to leave this forum at the behest of India to push its own agenda and narrative and expose the reality that Kashmir, despite the Indian influence and wealth, continues to be the most oldest and most important agenda on the United Nations Security Council, and the freedom struggle that the Kashmiris are bravely carrying out is UN recognized and a legitimate struggle. So, trying to present that struggle as a terrorist movement actually is an attempt by the Indian leadership to present it as to delegitimize it, and also present Pakistan in a negative light. But I think
Ali,
we must appreciate our foreign minister for exposing the reality
Ali,
before.
let us come to that later. There's another very important statement that he has given, and I want your comment on it. He said, "Victims of terrorism do not sit together with the perpetrators of terrorism." He was saying that, I initially thought that he is saying this about India, a country that has been pushing terrorism, sponsoring TTP, sponsoring all other outfits. We have their officer caught in service inside Pakistan who has admitted viciously on television that it was him behind all of this, with the entire support of his state operators. But then, on the contrary, it is India that is saying Pakistan promoting terrorism. How many terrorism incidences, by the way, have taken place inside India during last 10 years, whereas Pakistan has even perhaps lost the count? We have had more than 100,000 people killed because of terrorism.
Absolutely. I think 3 points. Number one, I think you must congratulate and recognize India for pioneering and introducing terrorism in this part of the world. And the ultimate, paralleled evidence of that is the support, training, funding of the Makti Bahni outfit in East Pakistan, in former East Pakistan, which led to the separation of East Pakistan. Let's recognize that was a terrorist movement, and number one. And even today, when we have Mr. Kulbhushan Yadav, who's a Indian military officer, a serving military officer of India, what other international evidence you need to prove that it's the Indian state which is directly involved in promoting terrorism and insurgency in the regional countries. And they have been supporting not just Pakistan, Shabahat. Everybody knows for almost 3 decades, they provided all possible military, economic, and training support to the Tamil Tigers against Sri Lanka as well. And Pakistan offered great support to Sri Lanka in trying to eliminate terrorism. And similarly, in case of PLA and Daesh and TTP, that has led to the sacrifices of over 80,000 lives in Pakistan. That is nothing but asymmetrical and subconventional warfare that India has been waging against Pakistan for the last 20 years. And thankfully, we have gained significant ground with a lot of patience and a lot of sacrifices. And we cannot afford to, allow the resurgence of terrorism, and we need to decisively eliminate it. And that is the second aspect. But let me quickly share 3 aspects which indicate the real purpose and objectives of Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto's India visit, which thankfully were all individually and collectively achieved and fulfilled. Number
And
one.
Ali also, while responding to this, if you can also add your comments with regards to his media appearances, which came later and are, on the social media like a fire. Indians and Pakistanis are commenting on it. Tell us, how do you think of his media appearance? This was his first time facing Indian media.
Absolutely. I think, thank you for reminding me that. The most important thing is the personality and the family history of Mr. Bilawal. When Mr. Bilawal speaks on the Indian soil and says that Pakistani people, Pakistani government, he himself is committed against fighting terrorism, then he lost his own mother as a result of a terrorist attack. So what greater evidence the international community and India needs to prove our resolve and commitment against terrorism. Number one, our foreign minister himself lost his life, his mother's life in that terrorist attack. Number one. Number two, it was very important for Pakistan to clarify, and I think it was wisely and timely reiterated that it was not a bilateral visit. Pakistani foreign minister was invited by SCO to participate in the Foreign Ministers Council, which Pakistan thinks is a very important, emerging, and significant forum in which Pakistan not only wants to benefit but also contribute constructively and meaningfully for regional peace, progress, and cooperation and connectivity. Number one. Secondly, very important opportunity because it allowed Pakistani foreign minister to use the opportunity on the sidelines to meet very important counterparts from other very important countries, like Russian foreign minister, like Chinese counterpart, like from Central Asian countries and other countries. We are going to expect soon, perhaps Iran becoming a full member, Saudi Arab, UAE, Kuwait, all these Gulf countries are also engaged with SCO and have expressed their interest as dialogue partners. So that is a very important forum that Pakistan cannot neglect and use this opportunity to have sideline bilateral meetings to consult and cooperate on different issues. The third aspect is the most important, which stands vindicated by his press conference, both and talk to the media both inside India and after his return to Pakistan, that he did not want to leave. Pakistan did not want to leave the forum entirely at Indian behest, so that they use this for domestic political agenda and for bad mouthing Pakistan and for misleading the international community. So he took this opportunity to clarify the facts and expose Indian
Thank
reality
you.
before the international.
Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali, for adding value to this program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with the last segment of program. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, Sudan is in the storm of crisis these days. Interestingly, the military is fighting with the paramilitary forces that were essentially built to fight against the terrorism spread in some parts of the country. Democracy has not returned to the country, a country that is in the clutches of military control since 1989 has not seen a day of democracy as yet. And while the two sides are fighting against each other, the number of losses, life losses, as well as the losses of infrastructure have lost any count. To talk more about this issue, we have invited Mr. Ahmad Zaki, who is one of the leading experts on this subject, and currently he's in Somaliland, so he's joining me from Somaliland on Skype. Ahmad Zaki, welcome to the show. Ahmad, what's the background of the current conflict? Who is fighting with the military, and what do you believe is the reason behind it?
And as we know that in Sudan, there was a long time war in northern part of Sudan, or what they call it Darfur area. In Darfur area, there is two type of tribes they were fighting. One was the Arab African, and one was the non-Arab Africans who are living over there. And the former president of Sudan, Omar Hassan al-Bashir, he faced a lot of defeat from the non-African fighters or militants in Darfur. And he created a group which they call it Arab Africans to do all the fighting and give the intelligent information so that the government can tackle the rebels. And that was when they created, that was called RSF, the current party who are main member of the fighting with the military of Sudan. When you understand that it was being funded, supported, and encouraged by the former regime, and they did a lot of work for the former regime, and the current leader of RSF, he created a group up to almost 100,000 soldiers, well trained, that he can now compete with the military of the Sudan. The problem is that the current situation arises when the current president, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, he requested the leader of RSF that he said that we want to merge and make it one unit of army, national army, that you cannot have a separate army and you cannot be part of the government as well. So we should have to have merge each other. On the other hand, he requested Hamidi. He said that we are going to merge with the military of Sudan, but we need at least 10 years of transitional period so that my team should integrate with the team of Sudan. He didn't accept that. On the other hand, when you see the RSF, they are getting a support from Saudi Arabia, from United Arab Emirates, and from Russia. They did a lot of cooperation with them. They are the ones who were fighting in Yemen on behalf of United Arab Emirates. They are the one who was taking money and salary from the current government of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and they have millions of dollars, which even the military of the Sudan don't have access. And the military of Sudan currently, they are feeling that they have been challenging their actual authority of a national protection. And that is where the President Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, he is not ready to accept that they are going to fight against the
Ahmad Zaki, thank you very much for giving this brief background of the problem and identifying all the major stakeholders in the current conflict. What I failed to understand is that maybe a year and a half ago, when we had invited you in our studio and we were talking about the Sudan's crisis, we were discussing that Al-Fatah al-Burhan, who is the military leader, is now trying to give power to a democratic body, and there's a transition that is taking place at the moment. But now we are seeing military becoming a part of the conflict, and they have waged an all-out war against the other side. Why do you believe military has changed its stance?
Definitely. When you see the current crisis that we have seen, the civil war between the two functions of the military of Sudan, when you see that it was not a part of the public demand, like none of them are supporting the public interest, which is democratization and changing the democratic system of the country. But the problem that they are facing currently is that they have a power struggle between each other. The democracy have been denied by the people of Sudan. The protesters and the people who were demanding that restoring the democracy in Sudan is not been part of the government for the last 2 years. They give one time a chance that they created a council of transition, which was working with the civilian leaders and also the military council, which make the transitional government. When Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, when he took the power, he eliminated that council, and he created a national security council for Sudan, and that's where they started facing the problem again. Now the issue and the question of the people of Sudan are requesting restoring the democracy in Sudan is no longer in the picture. People are not being respected their demand. The democratization process completely collapsed. Now the problem is that the military are each
and Ahmed, all of this crisis, where is the democratic leadership of the country? There was, I remember, a democratic leadership that was quite eager to take control once the democratic process takes place. So where are all these political leaders of Sudan? Because we do not hear a lot from the democratic side as well.
The last Prime Minister of Abdullah Hamdok, they took the power by force. The military took the power by force. They created a new coup As you know that Abdullah Hamdouk now he's living in exile. All his political leaders, the people who were leading the democratization movement of the civilian administration or civil demand, they are exiled from the country or they are in jail. None of them are free and can express their opinion or their demand inside the country. The good example is that just few months earlier when we were discussing about Sudan issue, people demanded that they want to restore the civilian administration in Sudan. And with that protest, peaceful protest, the army opened fire and they killed 241 people in less than 2 days. They imagine the massacre that they did in Khartoum. And they are willing to go.
Zaki, let's talk about the
extent.
other side of the story. Now, tell us about the atrocities and particularly the damages to infrastructure, the life losses. Do we have any reliable numbers, or can any numbers be relied, particularly when it's the side in power that is fighting with another faction of power in the country?
Currently, because of lack, there's no electricity in Sudan. There's no proper communication system. There is no even water system. The two sides, both of them, they are saying that we have the upper hand of the war. Nobody can. There is no an independent organization who can clarify the number of casualties. Up to the estimation of the UN and the human rights organizations, they are saying more than 20,000 people displaced. They are facing lack of water and sanitary. They cannot have access to the medical supplies and even the necessary water and the food. And that is humanitarian crisis going on currently and in Sudan.
And lastly, Zaki, tell us about the role of African Union and any other humanitarian organizations if they are making any interventions at the moment.
At the moment, IGAD, the organization of East African members, they are leading the diplomatic negotiations. There is a negotiation which successfully take place for 3 days of ceasefire, brokered by the IGAD organization, supported by the African Union. There is a lot of call from the United Nations, US, and other Western powers. They are pressurizing both sides to have a diplomatic solution and stop the war. Unfortunately, none of them have make any successful result. But now South Sudan is offering the negotiation table between the two military leaders and to restore the peace and stability in Sudan. And that's one of the strange things that you can see, that they were fighting, the same administration was fighting against the South Sudan just a few years before. Now South
Thank
Sudan
you very
is
much,
offering
Ahmad
the
Zaki, for
negotiation
being guest
table.
in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Ahmad Zaki joining us from Somaliland. And my last guest in the show is Mr. Adam Rousselle. Adam is an expert and also an analyst of African affairs. He is based in Bali, Indonesia, and is a regular writer for Militant War Network. Adam Rousselle, welcome to the show. Tell us about the very concept of having two armies in a country. How this model emerged and why did it all happen?
It's a complicated thing, Syed, but the short answer is the former President Omar Bashir armed and provided support for local militias to fight rebel groups in the Darfur region, groups that have since been accused of genocide by multiple international observers. These various militias were reorganized to comprise the Rapid Response Forces, or RSF, under Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo in 2013, and were ostensibly used to police migration in the region. In 2014, Human Rights Watch calculated that this group had about 5,000 or 6,000 fighters, and that number has now grown to over 100,000, as you say. Before his ouster in 2019, Bashir is said to have played the RSF off of the military periodically in an effort to stay in power, probably to stave off a coup. Obviously, that didn't work. Now that he's gone, the two sides are unable to come to any kind of agreement as to how to share power.
And Adam, how did these two sides started building mistrust, which led to such a catastrophic situation?
Like many things in politics, there is much beneath the surface. Although the two sides came together to overthrow Bashir in 2019 after widespread protest, they have struggled to reach any sort of power-sharing agreement. The spark of the conflict seems to be that the military under General Boran refuses to integrate the RSF into the ranks of the military and instead has sought their disbandment. As I mentioned, the RSF has considerable manpower, and General Dagalo is actually one of the richest men in the country thanks to his substantial holdings in Darfur gold mining. So the idea that they can simply be swept under the rug is just not
Adam, there are many who say that General Dagalo belongs to a particular ethnic clan that does not have representation in the mainstream politics or the mainstream power structure of the country, and that perhaps add another ethnic angle to this conflict as well. Would you agree with that?
I think it's complicated. Dagalo is of the Rizaikat tribe of Darfur, and his supporters are primarily Darfurian Arabs who speak in a Chadian dialect that is distinct from the Sudanese Arabic spoken in the rest of the country. By contrast, the military is primarily comprised of Sudanese Arabs who speak Sudanese Arabic and are primarily of the Nile region. However, both sides define themselves on their Arab identity and are seeking some degree of power over the country as a whole. So I think it's too early to say, to say whether this will take on an ethnic angle or not, but it certainly could if the conflict escalates. I think it's just too early to tell.
And RSF's disbanding was perhaps the breaking point, something that actually triggered the war. Do you think it was a logical thing to disband RSF entirely and in one go?
Well, it depends on what the logic of the military was. If their logic was to spark a civil war and bring the RSF out to fight them in the streets, they certainly achieved it. If their goal was to simply make them disappear by calling for their disbandment, I think that's pretty wishful thinking. The RSF is, like I said, it's a substantial force. It has a lot of fighters and a lot of financial backing and is heavily armed. So I don't think that it's going anywhere, and simply try to disband it would not make it go away at all. Again, though, if the goal was to spark a conflict so that it could be escalated and taken care of, perhaps the military believes it has an advantage in this.
And Adam,
I could see
many people believe that there are international linkages of RSF with many international organizations or perhaps countries. I have rather studied in a few of the newspapers that they are also connecting the Russian Wagner group with RSF. Have you find any direct connection between RSF and these international powerful organizations as well as countries?
It appears there is some evidence of international support. The Libyan National Army has come out in favor of the RSF, and it is said that the Ethiopians are backing them as well, likely in retaliation for alleged Sudanese support for rebels in their Tigray region. Wagner is an interesting one. It has a heavy presence in the Central African Republic, which neighbors Darfur, and is said to have been purchasing diamond and gold mining in Darfur, and this could be a sign of collusion between it and the RSF, given the RSF's heavy control of mining in that region. It's also worth noting that CNN has come out and said that Wagner is directly arming the RSF, but they haven't provided a source on that, so take from it what you will. There is no official word from Wagner on this matter as of yet, and no evidence that Russian mercenaries are taking part in it.
Adam, my last question for today's show. Tell us why the life losses are increasing so rapidly. And also tell us if the military has any particular will to restore democracy in the country. What's your take on it?
There has been heavy fighting between the two sides, and this has included airstrikes by the Sudanese military. The fighting has now overtaken Khartoum, which is home to over 5 million people. In addition to civilian deaths, the fighting is said to have driven thousands from their homes to Egypt or Port Sudan. This is a long and dangerous drive that is said to be prone to banditry. With regard to the restoration of civilian rule, it is difficult to say. We know where the RSF stands on the issue, as they committed a massacre of protesters calling for the return to civilian rule in July of 2019. Although the military has its hands full with the current crisis, General Burhan recently did state that he has the intention to restore civilian rule over the country. Whether this is genuine or simply a means of bolstering domestic and international support remains to be seen.
Thank you very much, Adam Rousselle, for being guest in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation in Sudan is horrific, and it reminds us why democracy is thought to be panacea for all the crises. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.